welcome to, let's see if we can get the best light. Always got to find your light. Hello and welcome to part 3 of a 4-part interview skills training class brought to you by Flight Attendant Career Connection. So I am excited to talk about today. I'm excited every day, but I'm excited about today's section. Today we're going to be talking about personality questions. So this is a 4-part interview skills training class. This is part 3. So this is the 3rd part. And we have talked about, in part 1, we talked about tell me what you think questions, which are sort of like, why do you want to be a flight attendant? Why do you want to represent this airline? Those kind of questions, they're a little bit more about what you think. We talked yesterday about STAR format. So if you're struggling with STAR format, please check that out. Also, I didn't mention this yesterday, and I probably in part 2's training, I probably should have. I actually offer a full STAR format training. It's a class and it's about an hour and a half long, and it's all about STAR format. Tons of examples if you're struggling about how to pick which story for what. So I'll put the link to that in the description in case you want to check that out. And then today we're talking about personality questions, and then part 4, which will be taught tomorrow. If you're watching the replay, today's and tomorrow's are irrelevant, but part 4 will be onboard situational questions. So that, for example, if you're on the plane and this happens, how would you handle it? But today we're talking about personality questions. These questions, this is the question where sometimes you're in an interview and you are faced with answering a question that sounds completely random and like way out from left field, and you have no idea how it matters at all. And these are those questions that are designed to kind of disarm you a little bit, to really find out your personality, what makes you tick, learn a little bit about you as a person. Now, most of the time, so let me give you some examples before I give you a little bit more information. So sometimes one that's really, really popular, that's been popular for years, is like, who would you sit next to on a flight to Japan? On a 12-hour flight, if you could sit next to anyone, who would you want to sit next to? Or what would the title of your biography be? If someone wrote a biography about you, what would the title of your biography be? If you were an animal, which one would you be and why? What's your favorite color and why? If you could invite 3 people to dinner or to have lunch with any 3 people in the world, who would you have lunch with? So these questions, they're not really flight attendant specific. They're more to learn about you. Now, most of the time, you will not really encounter these questions in a very traditional one-on-one setting. These are usually more group activities or panel interviews. So what I mean by that is either you will experience them during a time when you maybe have to stand in front of the group and introduce yourself and then answer one of these little quirky questions to show a little bit about you, or maybe in a group panel where there's maybe 3 of y'all being interviewed by 1 or 2 recruiters, and you're all asked kind of a personality question. So it's not usually right here in the middle of the, like, so tell me how your experience has prepared you to be a flight attendant, and what is your favorite color? It's not usually in that kind of face-to-face. It's usually in a much bigger, it's like an icebreaker. It's get you warmed up. They're sometimes called fishbowl questions. So if you're doing research, or if you're in my Facebook group, or you're on Glassdoor, or you're kind of Googling around, you may see these referred to as fishbowl questions. And the reason that some people call them that is because Spirit Airlines actually puts these in a fishbowl for their interview. And so you have to go and pull a question, a fishbowl question, out of the fishbowl and present it. So that's why they're called fishbowl questions. I don't know if they're called fishbowl questions in any other industry except for ours. So most people would call these personality questions. But that's what you might hear them called. So let's go ahead and start to talk a little bit about how you're going to set up. Did I introduce myself? I have no idea. I can't remember. I think I sort of did, but I do want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm Abby Unger, and I'm the owner of Flight Attendant Career Connection, which is a company that offers coaching, encouragement, resources, and community to aspiring and professional flight attendants. And I want to invite you to join my Facebook group. If you're not in it, there's almost 70,000 members in it as of now, which is the second day of March 2019. And so it's over on Facebook, and it's called Flight Attendant Career Connection. But you'll get lots of questions answered. You can use the search function in that group and get pretty much any question about tattoos, how to get started, best makeup, best pantyhose, best lipstick, best uniform, best hotel. Like there's just where she, like, it's just so, like, if you are thinking it, probably in the group. So I'd love to invite everyone to join. All right, so now let's get back. That was like a commercial. So now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Let's talk about personality questions. One thing that I want to make sure that we first go over is we have to decide whether or not, or you have to decide whether or not you have the right personality to become a flight attendant. So that's kind of the first step in this whole process. So I want everyone to say self, do I feel like I have the right personality to be a flight attendant? So it doesn't have to be like another flight attendant. You don't have to be bubbly like me, but do you feel like you have the right personality? Can you care for people? Are you gracious? Are you kind? Can you be remarkable? Are you kind-hearted? Are you fun-loving? Do you have a servant's heart? Do you love connecting people? Like, what do you have a personality that when you just sort of think about yourself, do you think that you have a personality that would serve you well as a flight attendant? If you are going through this process, this hard process, I'm going to go ahead and assume that the answer is yes, because this isn't really a job that you can just fall into. It's too many steps and too many levels and too much effort to accidentally be hired as a flight attendant these days. So I'm going to go ahead and agree with you and assume that you said, yes, ma'am, I have the personality to be a successful flight attendant. So now that we've established that, I want you to take some weight off of you when you're answering these questions and a little bit of weight of trying to figure out what they want, because they want to know your personality. And if your personality is what will it will aid you in being a successful flight attendant, then you already have what they're looking for. So you don't have to try to figure out what they're looking for, because we just established that if they're testing your personality or learning about your personality, you have the right personality that they're looking for. Okay, so that should take a little bit of pressure off. Next, I want you to know that there is no such thing as a right answer. Okay, for those of you like me, who like rules, regulations, guidelines, show me where I'm supposed to go so that I can go straight there and accomplish my goal. That's probably very, very frustrating, but there is no right answer. They are not looking for you to say a specific thing. And now you have said the right answer, and now you're going to move on. Now, there are wrong answers. There are wrong answers. You could answer these questions improperly. If you said something that was ridiculous, like, what's your favorite animal? I would be a cat because I hate being around people. Probably not the best answer for a flight attendant. It's not the cat part, it's the why. And so that's what we really want to focus on when you're coming up with your answers. It's not the first part. It's not the person you pick or the animal you pick or the color you pick or the tree you pick or the flower you pick. It's the why. And so there is no right answer. You could pick any color in the rainbow, and as long as your why is supporting what you're trying to do, which is show them how you love people and love travel, then you are on the right track. Okay. So there are wrong answers, but there's no right answer. Hopefully that gives you a break instead of stresses you out. But okay, so moving on. Another thing that you want to remember, since we're sort of talking about a group, more than likely you're going to be standing in front of a group to say these answers, or you're going to be speaking in front of more than one applicant. So I do want to take a little side note and talk really quickly about some tips for standing in front of the group. So whether or not you're answering a personality question, or maybe you are answering, why would you be successful? Why do you feel like you are going to be a successful SkyWest flight attendant, or whatever, in front of the group, I just want to take like a quick little tutorial on the side about standing in front of of a group. So when you are asked to stand in front of a group and answer questions, the first thing that you need to make sure that you do is that you are following directions exactly. Okay. So I like to suggest that you take a little notepad. So when they're saying, we'd love for everyone to come up here one at a time and say your name and what languages you speak and why you feel like and what the Alaska spirit means to you, whatever the question is, so that you can jot that down: name, languages, Alaska spirit, because they're all going to be slightly different. Some people will say your name and where you flew in from and, what's your favorite color or something. So whatever the question is, you want to make sure, though, that you are following the directions exactly. So if they say your name, where you're from, or your name and your languages, or say your name, spell your name, whatever it is, make sure you do it. Sometimes they'll say your name, answer your question, say your name again. Don't forget to say your name again. So following the instructions is part of the test. Okay. It's part of the interview at this point. It is one of the main things they're looking for when they make you stand at the front of a room. Can you hold it together, keep your wits about you, and do what you're told to do? Yes. Okay, good. So that's one thing. Another thing is think about the way that you are walking up there, the way that you are standing. Okay. So it feels awkward. I mean, the whole thing feels freaking awkward, but you will want to stand with your hands down by your side, or you can clasp them in front, or you can clasp them in back. But you don't want, like, y'all can't really see me, but you can kind of tell, like, you don't want to like put your hand on your hip and kick your leg out. You want to be standing up straight. Standing up straight with your hands by your side is fine. In the front, clasp in the back. Okay, no hands on your hips. If you talk with your hands a little bit, I do, that's okay. You can talk with your hands a little bit and then put them back to your sides when you're done. Don't be messing with your hair. You also want to make sure that you're standing up straight, that your weight is even on both feet, that you're not like cocked over to the side, being nervous and shaking one of your legs like this because you're so nervous. You want to make sure that you're standing up straight, you're grounded, you look confident, shoulders back. The confidence class talks a lot about this. If you're interested in that, I'll put the link in the description. But the confidence class talks a lot about power posing and how even just standing up straight can change the chemicals in your body to make you feel more confident. Another thing that you want to think about is your voice. So if you've taken any sort of theater or acting or anything, then you'll know this, or public speaking, but if you haven't, I'm going to go ahead and go over it. So you want to make sure that you're speaking to the back of the room. So you're going to keep in mind that there are people in the back of the room and you're not like shouting at them, but you want your voice to carry. People tend to squeak when they get nervous. So your voice naturally tends to kind of go up a little bit because I'm a little bit nervous. So you're going to want to, on purpose, sort of drop an octave so that you sound more confident, you sound more grounded, so that your voice can carry. It's easier for your voice to carry that way. So you want to remember that you're speaking to the people in the back of the room, whether the recruiters are back there or they're in the front. You're still speaking to the people in the back of the room, and drop your voice an octave so that you can sound a little more grounded, a little more mature, a little more confident, and your voice will carry better. Okay. Last tip: during this group activity, make sure that you're aware of yourself when it's not your turn, because they are aware of you when it's not your turn. So don't pull your phone out. Don't be fidgeting. Don't make a lot of noise. I always love it when I'm standing up there and I can spot the person who's just smiling at me like I'm the most amazing, smartest girl they've ever heard. And they're doing that for me as a gift. And so I try to be that person too. So if we were ever in an interview, you would probably find me like, yeah, that's great. Because, I feel like it's good karma. And so you be that person for someone. Don't be being mugging over there while they're doing their best and going way outside their comfort zone and being scared to death. Smile at them. Give them a nod. Give them a happy face to look at. Okay. That is a little bit of a sidebar about standing in front of the group so that you can be successful when you're actually answering these questions. Okay. Let's dive back into these questions. So I mentioned before that there's no wrong answer. I mean, there is no right answer. There are wrong answers. And what really, really matters is the why to these answers. So when you're coming up with the answers, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite animal? Just pick one. Don't belabor the who. but think about the why. So like my favorite animal is an otter because they are they live in groups and they work together. They are loyal to each other and committed to each other. I also like the fact that they are always seem like they're having fun and they're enjoying the work that they do and that they're enjoying life. I feel like they are a very friendly animal, that they're kind of an outgoing animal, and they definitely work together as a team best. So that's why an otter is my favorite one. One of the best examples I got from a coaching client was a horse one time. And she's an animal person. I'm not really an animal person. Disclosure. She's like an animal person. So she she like had a lot of answers. But she was like, I think my favorite would be a horse because they are so regal and strong and they are hard workers and they just really thrive in getting a job well done, and at the end of the day they just always look so polished and they always look so put together, and just the way that they present themselves to the world is so just regal, and it's very people can just look at them and just say like, wow, that horse is so powerful, but it's gentle at the same time. She did it better than me. But I was like, oh, I never thought about I was just like, I didn't know that a horse was so amazing. So just think about the why. First time I was teaching this class, I was trying to use a cat as an example. I was like, you can even say cat. And then I went, but I can't think of anything positive about a cat right now. So someone email me and tell me what you would say. And I actually did have someone who emailed me and she said that she would say, my favorite animal is a cat because they are very independent and they don't need anyone looking over their shoulder to make sure that they are being successful. They also take a lot of pride in their appearance and they're always very well groomed. And I also like that even though they are independent and they can do the job that they need to do throughout their day, they also enjoy being around other cats and they enjoy being around their owner and their families as well. So they're not a loner, even though they're very independent. I was like, okay, that works. I couldn't come up with anything, but I thought that was a good one. So the answer, the first one doesn't matter. The answer doesn't matter. It's the why that matters. Let's talk a little bit about these questions that you're going to pick. And I don't even know if I said this, but I'm working out of the Flight Attendant Career Connection interview workbook. That's the paperwork that I'm using over here. So this says 2018, but if you purchase now, you'll get 2019. Unless you're watching this in 2020, and then you'll get 2020. But right now it comes with free 3 bonuses, and it is a digital download. It is the textbook for this 4-part training. So the workbook is broken into 4 parts too. So I'm in the personality question section. Now let's talk about when you have to pick a person to do something. Okay. So this one I get a lot of questions about because people are like, I don't know who I'd pick to sit next to on a plane because they'll say, I know I'm not supposed to pick anyone in my family, and I know I'm not supposed to pick anyone religious, and I know that I'm not supposed to pick anyone political. And so now I can't think of anybody. And I'm like, except Kim Kardashian, right? They're like, yeah, and I don't want to sit next to her. No, just kidding. Love you, Kim. Like she's watching. Love you, Kim. Totally watching. So here, let's go ahead and again, let me let you off the hook. Unless they give you a qualification that says like, tell me who would sit next to on a plane that's not a family member, which they might do, but they usually don't. You don't have to, unless they qualify it for you, you don't have to qualify it for yourself. Just pick someone. Here, let's talk this out though. So yes, politics, divisive. Religion, divisive. Your family members, maybe the easy way out. I don't know. But again, the why matters. That is what matters. You could pick someone who, almost everyone is either political or religious. One that's really popular for people to use is Mother Teresa. So they would sit next to Mother Teresa because she was just so amazing and she changed the world, and they just would really love to listen to her talk and learn from her, and she's so wise. And she's a fantastic answer, but she's religious because she's a nun. That's why, or she was a nun. That's why we call her Mother Teresa. She was a nun. So she was a religious figure. So I don't want you to feel, we've had some great presidents. Like we've had some great first ladies. I mean, Michelle Obama's book that just came out last year was like, I mean, I know that it was like so instrumental for a lot of people who read it. Like there are some, and she's political, but that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of really well respected people that we could learn about, that we would want to sit next to and learn from on the plane. So I don't want you to be scared of your answer. Okay. Couple guidelines. I would be careful on picking someone who is like super divisive or evil, like Hitler, or someone who's like really like, yeah, okay. I mean, you could kind of like go with the why and like clean that up, but you don't know what your recruiter's background is. You don't know what kind of like reaction they would have to that kind of like thought. So, I would just be careful with that. You want to make sure that you can get through talking about the person without getting overly emotional. So if you're picking someone who has maybe passed away recently, or maybe passed away a long time ago and it's still smart, you want to make sure that you can get through. You're going to be amped on adrenaline. You're going to be nervous as all get out. Your emotions will already be like simmering right here at the surface. And so you don't want to tip them by maybe talking about your daddy, or someone who that you get emotional still about. Okay. So that's another thing that you want to be considerate of. And then the last one is, maybe this is, okay, I had two tips for that. But I do want to tell you that one of the best answers that I've ever heard for this question was actually, it wasn't a client. I was in an interview, and this was with American Eagle in 2008, and it was with American Eagle, which is now Envoy, and they asked this question. And one of the girls, the ladies in the interview group that I was in, she answered the question by saying that she was like, I would love to sit next to, and she said a lady's name, and she said, she's actually the president of my HOA where I live. And I always just have a lot of respect for her. And I'm always just really impressed with her, the way that she leads the meetings, the way that she communicates with people. And she's really successful in her business, in her career, and also as a leader in the HOA. And I never really get to speak with her for a long period of time, because she's busy and she has a lot going on. But I've always just had a lot of respect for her. So I would love to sit next to her for 12 hours on a flight and really pick her brain and just learn about her and how she got to where she is, and just learn from her. I would like to get to know her. I love that answer because it's like, it's not a family member. It's like she did it. Like she picked someone who's not a family member, that's not religious, not a religious figure, and not a political figure. Like she did it. So maybe that would stretch you. Maybe you do have someone like that in your life that you could use for this example. Because I thought that was a great answer. I was just impressed with that. I was like, good for you. And it just shows how thoughtful she is and how much she notices the people in her life that can make her better and contribute to her success. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's kind of the end of this one. I want to talk about, there is an airline who currently, I mean, they change. So there's an airline that currently asks you to say like a fun fact about yourself. Something. So when you're thinking about your fun fact, okay, so here's kind of how it goes. It's a group activity where there's like, I think there's 4 of y'all, and you all have to come up with 3 things that you have in common, and then 1 thing that you have that's unique that you don't have in common with anyone in your group. And this is sort of an icebreaker, and then it's presented to the front. So it's always good to sort of have some things in your mind that you maybe do have in common with people, like we've all been to Colorado, or we've all been to the ocean, or things that are a little bit more common. So you want to kind of be prepared with a couple of things, and then you want to have something on the side that people probably don't have, and you want to keep it doesn't have to be professional, meaning like from a professional standpoint, but you want your answer to not tip the scale of unprofessional. Okay, so it doesn't have to be professional, meaning from a work background, but it needs to be something that's not unprofessional or too weird. So some examples would be like scuba diving, or maybe you had a job that, like you were a high school teacher. That's, not that's not super common. And you want to think about maybe places that you visited that would maybe be unique. And so, but you don't want it to be so weird that that's just weird. Okay, so unique, not weird. And like I said, you want to have a couple things kind of in mind, like that are more common. Another one that I had was she was a child figure skater, like a professional figure skater, rodeo queens and horseback riders, and things like that are kind of specialized. So you wouldn't want to say like I love running. That wouldn't be very unique, but you could say I've completed 3 marathons or something along those lines. So hopefully that sort of helps you if you're preparing for that one too. All right, guys. So that is the end of the personality questions. I also wanted to mention, I know that Joshua Phillips has I'll try to find the link and put it in the description. I don't know if it's on YouTube or if it's on Facebook though, but he has a training that he did on the Fishbowl questions. He flies for Spirit. And so Spirit is one of the big ones that uses these personality questions. And so I'll see if I can find it and link it for y'all in the description. But if not, maybe go on Facebook and search around and see if you can find it, because I know that it was a full training on that as well. And thank you for joining me. If you haven't watched Class 1 and Class 2, please do that. Also watch Class 4, watch all of them. Subscribe to my channel. That would be amazing. I would love that. If you would like to be, especially if you would like to get a notification when I go live or when I upload a new video, you do need to be a subscriber, and then YouTube takes care of all of that. And you get it right on your phone or your computer or whatever in your email. All right, guys. Thanks. Talk to you later.